Hello, my name is Ian Hawkins. I'm the editor of PEX Network. Before we kick off, some housekeeping. First, PEX Network is where you'll find everything you need to help you navigate the world of process excellence. From the evergreen principles of Lean Six Sigma to the cutting edge in process automation, PEX Network has analysis, white papers, and webinars just like this one, always free to attend and always featuring the best ideas from the PEX world's thought leaders. We also produce free-to-attend online events, such as our forthcoming Process Mining Live 2020. You'll find a link to the registration page at the bottom of your screen. And while you're down at the bottom of the screen, you'll also find our resource box. In there are a couple of case studies and white papers from today's speaker. So take a moment, download these now, and you can look through those later at your leisure. You'll also find our Q&A box. This is where we can interact. If you have a question for our speaker, type it in, hit the send button, and we will cover off as many as we can at the end of the session. Any questions we don't have time for, I'll send over to the speaker with your contact details so you can continue the conversation offline. This is also the place to let us know if you're having any technical difficulties with today's presentation. Let us know, and a member of the team will jump on the case and sort out the issue. So, on to today's session. Today, we are very pleased to be joined by FlowForma and Octagon Value Chain to share with you some use cases and recommendations to help apply lean principles and automation for process adoption and perfection. With us today, we have Shay O'Connor, who is the Senior Vice President at FlowForma. Shay has more than 25 years of experience in the technology sector, with over 19 years of working in multi-sector consulting and business development projects. He's a highly skilled professional in the IT industry, and he has significant experience in providing clients with analysis, design, and implementation of business development solutions, particularly the no-code FlowForma process automation tool. Working with clients across the US and Ireland, Shay's worked with FlowForma customers to streamline and automate their business processes. We also have Clifford Lee, who is the Vice President at Octagon Value Chain. Clifford is an operations and supply chain expert with 30 years of improving operational and supply chain infrastructure, policies and processes in multi-site and multinational complex global organizations. He has profound strategy deployment, Lean Six Sigma, and process excellence improvement experience, and the know-how to drive business performance and transformation through creative, inclusive team resource management. With Cliff's background in lean practices and Shay's knowledge of automating processes without any coding, you should be in for some really valuable insights and recommendations today. I'd be amazed if you didn't. So here is our agenda for today. Cliff and Shay are going to kick off the webinar discussing lean principles and how to digitize processes featuring real-life examples. Shay will then take us through a short demo of the no-code FlowForma process automation tool, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of today's webinars to answer your questions. So put your questions in the box as they occur to you, and we'll tackle them at the end. Enough from me. Let me hand you over straight away to Shay O'Connor. Shay, are you there?
Thank you.
Oh, it's Cliff. Sorry, beg your pardon. Cliff, the floor is yours, sir.
That's okay. So now everybody's familiar with Shay's voice. You can get used to mine. This is Clifford Lee, and hello, everybody. And thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here with so many accomplished lean professionals. I'll start off with a great quote from Winston Churchill because the mindset he articulates here is spot on with regard to an important aspect of lean, to continuously seek perfection in whatever it is you're doing that brings value in business and in all aspects of life for that matter. And most, if not all companies today, certainly everybody in attendance in this webinar, are using various lean practices and tools to assist in accomplishing some higher company purpose. In this view, I've summarized the various supply chain transformation projects I've either led or participated in during my career. It's a very busy slide, I'll admit, but I thought it useful at this point to point out that every one of these projects used lean concepts and tools as a core element of the project. And additionally, many of these were Lean Six Sigma projects, and I'll go into this aspect in a couple of slides. And finally, every single project integrated with varying degrees of effectiveness, change management principles, and techniques. That's another important aspect which I will emphasize as we go through the discussion today. Okay, so Excuse me, give me just one minute here. Okay, so like a good lean professional should, I want to make sure that I'm very clear on operational definitions. Specifically, I wanted to lay out the essentials of the overall lean journey, because today we're going to discuss a technology that being digitization, and show how and where it can be applied as an enabler in the lean journey. These 4 steps that you see here are sequential, but since the lean journey or continuous search for efficiency is never ending, this is actually a feedback loop which is aimed at one thing, the most cost-efficient delivery of value to the customer. But we've all seen, I think, the Liberty Mutual commercial where the insurance guy says multiple times, only pay for what you need. That is a great statement of lean value delivery. I mentioned Lean Six Sigma, and these 2 approaches are like ham and eggs. You can fit any lean tool within the Six Sigma's DMAIC process. And I show this here because, as I think most attendees are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, I would ask you to compare your experience with what we're sharing with you today and see where you think having an easy tool to digitize the process as part of developing standard work, something that becomes relevant early on in the DMAIC process, and that being the measure phase, as you can see here in this diagram. Now, you've perhaps seen many versions of the OpEx journey, and you see our version here. This is actually a compilation of several other versions I've seen in the past, and every version that I've seen has similar functional track themes. You have business process, quality, strategy, IT, and supply chain. And there can be others, of course, but this includes the most common swim lanes. And companies will generally evolve from being heavily siloed and slow to respond to change to being increasingly nimble or agile, and with improving governance over processes, with collaboration, cross-functional collaboration dramatically increasing. From the population curve we've put at the top of the swim lanes that you can see here, it shows that the vast majority of companies are still working in that first big step beyond stage 1. And it's become obvious that the energy barrier to move from stage 2 to stage 3, as shown in this diagram, is enormous. There are technological step changes as well as significant organizational shifts that are required to make this jump. And today we're going to discuss one key step change, and that is to digitize. Okay, this is pretty basic stuff so far, but it's important to lay down the foundation before jumping into our special topic. But let's first begin by looking at the process evolution curve. It's pretty much a mirror of the main 4 steps from the previous chart, only with the specific detail relative to process excellence. Now, you'd think that most companies have successfully moved their manual processes into the digital world, but I can tell you from personal experience working with many clients over the past few years that this is far from reality. And so if you're right now personally reflecting on the myriad of manual processes in your business, don't feel bad, because you're definitely not alone. So Ian, why don't we take an anonymous poll here? Let's take a look at these 4 stages, everybody, and the many manual processes, increasing digitization, process automation, and taking increasing advantage of AI, and reflect for yourself exactly where you find you are, and how about take a vote and put that in the poll for us.
Thanks very much, Cliff. Yes, so how lean are your business processes? This is one for you watching wherever you are in the world. So you can just choose one of these. Are you at stage 1, manual, undocumented, non-lean? Are you at stage 2, mapped, digitized, automated? Are you at stage 3, optimized, process mined, and lean? Or are you at stage 4, machine learning, RPA? Choose the one that's closest to your current situation and hit the submit button. So just click on the button and hit the submit button. I'll give you 5 seconds to do that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make your choice. If you haven't already, click the submit button, and let's have a look at the results. Okay, so lots of people think they're at stage 1, manual, undocumented, non-lean, and that falls off sharply to 38% 8.5% at Matt Digitized and Automated, stage 2, and 2.3% for stages 3 and 4. Cliff, what do you make of those numbers?
Well, and I think as I was reflecting before with that population curve and the OpEx journey, this matches up pretty well. I would also comment that I think we have a very honest audience here, and so I think we're going to have a very good discussion for the remainder of the webinar. Thank you very much, everybody, for your responses. So let's move on. As I've been strongly hinting so far, digitization is definitely part of the lean journey, and continuously working to digitize and lean out your business processes is a crucial enabler to many other aspects of operations excellence. We need to look no further than Amazon as our poster child in this space. As you might expect, they digitize everything, but they only automate from that position where a human-to-human interface is not needed. So there is a big difference between digitization and automation. They'll tell you that they're nowhere near where they want to be in the digitization, automation perfection space, but even so, they're far ahead of the rest of the pack, and this enables them to continue to be a disruptor in the retail and other sector industries where they play. I also want to emphasize a few key points here about why digitization is so important. First of all, it's been measured that digitization is exponentially faster than manual. Or rather, you can take the flip side, as I said here. Manual is much, much slower. It's also much more costly than digital processes, too. Think of all of the time spent in manual work. And speaking of all that manual work, organizations spend at least 25% of their bandwidth on a week-by-week basis doing manual data processing. And on this one, you might want to reflect back on what your organization does and compare it with that particular statistic. Process governance with manual work is also commonly poor. Obviously, if everybody's doing manual work, they're doing their own processes. So how can you have consistency from person to person or group to group? And then finally, the data silos from manual work is just simply a natural outcome. Individuals are far less inclined to spend the time to share everything that they're doing with everybody else. And so that's why that's just an automatic consequence. Okay, so let's get on to a case study. Now, in my career, I have spent a lot of years working with many divisions within the DuPont company. And I wanted to summarize for everybody here exactly what DuPont had to do in order to move the needle in the OpEx space. It required to start an all-in mindset at the C-level in order to build a best-in-class organization to work with highly trained and certified continuous improvement professionals in Six Sigma and Lean and the Lean practitioner spaces, as well as have them all support business transformation and work with specialists within many centers of excellence within the company. And it took several years, as you can imagine, to stand up this whole process group. We also had to take some time, and it did take several years to develop a process, really what we would consider to be a world-class process that was highly disciplined and digitized where possible. And you could say that this process, which you're seeing right here, is a combination of several things. It's a combination of agile transformation, Hoshin Conry strategy deployment, if you know what Hoshin Conry is, and demand-driven value delivery. Demand-driven value, I think a lot of people understand what that is and how it translates into supply chain development. And enabling this process were a bunch of tools, including lean tools, that provided a consistent and disciplined approach across the company. Here I show some of the most effective tools, from value accelerators to Kaizens to multivariate ABC, XYZ. And underpinning all of these were change management tools and change management process, which we got successfully better at after some initial stumbles. So if we look at how this whole thing transpired over the years, one of the first things that I would like to point out to everybody in this graphic is that it's if you look at the time investment required in each swim lane, 5 to 10 and more years in order to move the needle. It takes a while to shift an organization and to develop the capabilities needed in order to make this movement. And so you cannot take a quarter by quarter approach to something like this. But it does require a consistent focus and performance measurements on a quarter by quarter basis in order to assure that you are on track with what you're trying to achieve in that 1 to 3 to 5 year period down the road. So you need the long-term plan, and you also need to have that short-term performance measurement as well. So DuPont was able to really move the needle in many areas. We did become, as recognized by a number of external organizations, world-class in our quality office with respect to the continuous improvement organization that and mindset we were able to develop. But it did take quite a long time there in order to accomplish that, on the order of a decade, in order to get the emphasis that we needed. Now, we did encounter a number of headwinds along the way, and these are headwinds that are only accelerating in businesses everywhere. Everybody is experiencing a lot of organizational turnover. That's just the nature of business today. When you have organizational turnover with manual processes, you have chaos. And so lack of digitization in that space creates a lot of firefighting and chaos. And this is one of the reasons why the emphasis was placed early on in this journey with DuPont to digitize as much as possible. And we were able to, once we were able to get core processes digitized, we were able to move the needle that much faster. DuPont has been highlighted in the news over the last several years because of its famous marriage to Dow Chemical Company to form the Dow DuPont Company, which lasted, I think it was a couple of years, 18 months to 24 months. That type of restructuring where you have wholesale change in leadership, wholesale emphasis change, that creates headwinds in a focus like this that can be very disrupting. And so it was for DuPont. But credit to the company for maintaining focus within various divisions in order to maintain that consistent improvement. So the leadership focus can occur even if you have a complete C-level change within a company if you have a leadership within your specific division maintain focus. And that was one of the key learnings here. And so I'm going to, before I pass this on to Shay, I would like to summarize some success factors here as far as how you translate a lean transformation into critical aspects of getting a whole organization moved to something better in the OpEx journey. And as I just mentioned, dedicated leadership is definitely top of the list. You have to have that consistently maintained, and a succession of leadership maintaining the same type of value system with it. So the corporate values on continuous improvement have to be there. The journey has to be understood. It will never end with regard to continuous improvement. You must be able to create short-term successes that embolden everybody doing the work and convince leadership that they're on the right track. You have to have well-defined projects in order to do this, and you have to have it aligned with not only the critical business priorities, but you have to have the measurements be able to be directly connected, financial measurements directly connected with the work that you're doing in order to show that it is impacting positively that bottom line. As you saw on one slide before, waste beats margin, and that's pure and simple. So this whole thing is directed at boosting profitability. I put in bold here on that second to last bullet here, digitize, digitize, digitize. It is the key enabler today of basically every kind of continuous improvement measure you want to put into place and maintain some kind of governance against it going forward. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar today. And then finally, managing your change management methodology and making sure that's consistent and effective is crucial. Most of the projects that fail with regard to a technical implementation or transformation fail because it's not adopted well within the organization and the change management was not done properly. So that is absolutely crucial. Okay. I'm going to pass it along to my colleague, Shay O'Connor, who's here to talk to us about how to digitize lean processes. Shay, take it over.
Thank you, Cliff. I'm always educated every time I listen to you. As Cliff was explaining the ideology, and I would presume that a lot of people who are on the webinar today would have a grasp of lean methodology. The nice thing is that when lean methodology was introduced, there probably weren't systems around to help sustain that or to add to that. Nowadays there are. And I just want to explain from a background point of view the tool, the FlowForma. So this was designed, and about 6 years ago it was started. And the whole concept was to make things easier. So a big directive to the creators was that people should only ever see what they need to see. They shouldn't be labored down with any extra information if it wasn't necessary. So when creating the tool, it was decided that the tool not only should allow that for the end user, but also for the creator. So when you are putting together a process, it shouldn't be cumbersome. You shouldn't have to build a workflow and then forms and then data and documents and bring them all together. What you should have is a tool that actually starts you off in the one place and has everything in the one place for you. Now, this is going to enable fast turnarounds. It's going to enable a quick adoption as well, because you get buy-in from users because they're actually involved at the very start. They can be there without handing over instructions to coders, etc. They can be there from the inception because this is a no-code environment. There are a lot of direct correlations between lean and the use of FlowForma, and it's purposely so. Straight away, with lean, you need to standardize your processes. So you would have organizations, and some have disparate locations around the globe. We're obviously going through a scenario at the moment where people need to work remotely from home or from different locations again, and they don't like people gathering. So the best way of having repeatable performance from everybody and when they do their work is to have digitized templates. FlowForma gives you that. So every single time you create a form and a task, it's done the same way, goes through the same steps, goes to the right people. All of that is tracked. So from an audit point of view, in the background, everything, all the movements, they're all being tracked at the same time as you're doing your work. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to notify anybody. It's being done automatically for you. At the end of all of that, you can see the results. You can see how long it took to do certain steps with a process. Everything is meant to be in a continuous movement. So when you are looking at your process, and if you can identify steps in the process that need to be done within certain time frames, etc., you need the facility to add rules to that process. So you need to be able to say, listen, if this isn't done within a day, I need to notify somebody that this is the case, because we have to have this done, say, within 48 hours. If it's not done within 20 hours, we get it reassigned. You shouldn't have to think about that. So when you build your process, those sort of rules, you just build them in. This, again, is all done without the use of code. The reduction of waste. Now, again, I was saying to you at the very start, the concept of FlowForma was that you should never see any more than you need to see. Everybody is used to these manual documents, these manual forms that could have, 10, 15 pages. We've all tried to renew our insurance, and you get that form and you go, oh no, I have to try and fit all this in. Basically, you need a dynamic form. And we actually do have insurance companies that do this. And what they do is when you make certain selections and you click certain boxes, pieces of information appear and disappear, but it's done dynamically. So the coder or the creator never even had to think about this. They basically just said, I hide this, I hide that. I don't have to code anything. Done very, very simply. Another great, as you evolve your process, you will want to involve your customers as well. Really important. And that is actually becoming more and more prevalent. As people are getting up to speed with their internal processes, they're saying, okay, let's involve external on this one. So with FlowForma, you can actually do that really easily. There's a facility to say, hey, this step in the process is for an external user. Okay, they'll get notified. They'll have a link, and they can open up their piece of the process and continue on. Again, it's to try and make this all just so easy. Now, personal responsibility. Each task or each step in a process, you have to have an owner for it. So you can't just have anything sitting there in limbo. Basically, when you move from your steps within a process, they get assigned to an actor in the process, be that an individual or a group. And at no stage do you not know where the process is. So there's a responsibility when you receive a task that you have to do it, and you would have to probably do it within a certain time frame. No ambiguity, no tray on the desk that hopefully people will pick up these items, or no letter that comes into the department and you open it up and, oh, let's hope the next person will take it. No. Pure visibility of everything. And then in the last step, and Cliff was talking about this, and we've had lots of conversations over time, myself and Cliff, just about the different companies that look at a process or have looked at processes and have said, right, hey, we've got our process now, we've got that ready, we've got it documented, and they walk away and they never go back to it. Or they don't go back to it for years, or they don't analyze it. The reality is, and we all know, environments change, times change, requirements change. You need to always be able to keep an eye on your process. The easiest way of keeping an eye on your process is if it's digitized. Otherwise, you're going to have to go out and do a whole analysis of your manual process, have people's time used just checking it out. Digitize it. There's literally no downside to it. And again, it's all done through no code. We have a poll question now.
We certainly do. Let's have a look. So this is again for the audience. What benefits would you like to gain from digitizing lean business processes? And again, you can choose the one that you think is the best fit. So here are your choices. Users only see what they need to see, or there's see bottlenecks quickly, or there's having one source of truth, or there is increased efficiency and productivity. And I believe you can choose more than one. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, or indeed all 4 of these. Let me run you through this again. So what benefits would you like to gain from digitizing business processes? Users only see what they need to see. You can see bottlenecks quickly, one source of truth, or increased efficiency and productivity. Choose your options. Hit the submit button. You have 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you hit the submit button, if you haven't already, let's look at the results. So strong showing for increased efficiency and productivity, not surprising. One source of truth and seeing bottlenecks quickly is in the middle. And users only see what they need to see. That's trailing in 4th place. Back to you, Shay.
Thanks, Ian. So you have your processes digitized. These are the benefits. Now, you're probably going to say that, okay, these are pretty obvious benefits. It's actually the challenges are probably the easiest things to visualize. The benefits here are pretty far-reaching because you don't have to tackle these individually. These actually happen as a direct result of digitizing the processes, each one of these. So you are going to get, as a result, better data. Now, one of the questions there was about one source of truth. The reality is when you have a platform like FlowForma, you can connect all your data to it. So you should only ever need to do something once, retain data once, enter data once, and reuse it. Not only is that data retained, and it's a big gap when you look at workflows, when people have really great workflows, and they're marvelous, but the reality is they don't concentrate on the data that's shared in between the steps of a workflow. So when you concentrate on digitizing your process, you have to see what data you are retaining. You have to see what the integrity of that data is. So instead of allowing free text, you go for drop-downs. You go for set categories. You have the opportunity of doing that without it being cumbersome. All that means is that you knock on effect, you're going to get better governance. You're going to get better visibility. You know where your processes sit. You can track where they are. You can highlight where everything is. Mobile access is quite a unique feature within FlowForma because when you create a process, it's automatically rendered for the mobile. So you can automatically go onto our mobile app and see the exact same process. We have examples of this in use across the world, basically where people just want to create the one process, off they go. They don't have to think about creating a mobile app as well. It's done for them already. Now, an example of this here, and this is just a live, it actually is a live use case, where it's a targeted risk monitoring that's been in use on one of our projects, road construction, or in the UK. And they used to have completely manual processes. Now, the biggest hurdle that they found was the initial adoption. So going from manual to forms, they wanted to illustrate the saving on it. They knew they're going to need a lot of processes digitized, so what they did was they said, right, if we concentrate on one, we will check and measure how long it takes to do manually. Now we'll digitize it and we'll check how long it takes to be used digitally. And obviously see the difference and equate how long that takes. Now, the nice thing on this is that this it's quantified to $96,000, as you can see there. It's one of Cliff's points earlier on when you're looking at making your processes more efficient. Can you measure it? So not every process you can measure. You have to try your best. Sometimes the reaction we get is, how well did you perform? What's your percentage efficiency? And they just go, hey, all I know is that we're really efficient now, because there was never any measurements beforehand. Now, that's not the be-all and end-all. But when you can illustrate a simple process like this targeted risk monitoring, and show the savings that can be made over the duration of a project, this far outweighed the cost of even bringing in a tool like FlowForma. So that's on one process. And just for your own information, they digitized 76 processes. So there are 75 other processes, and this was only one of the minor ones. So the reality is the impact of digitizing, the impact of making all of these processes more efficient is always positive. The biggest intrepidation that people would have, and they feel it's a hurdle, is like, am I going to get my people to use it? Because you change them from manual to digital. The reality is the first one is a bit of a hurdle. It absolutely is. Because you're going to teach people new ways, and especially if they have low digital skills. But what happens as a result is that everything after that is always the same. So the learning curve is so much shorter. The first process in this project probably took about a month or so to put in. The rest of them, 75 others, came in that year. So as you can see, the escalation is quite fast. The great thing about all the data that's been gathered there is that you can end up with graphics like this. So when people are making decisions, when management are making decisions, when supervisors are making decisions, they want something visible. It needs to be up to date. It needs to be accurate and visually compelling. So with this, we make sure that your data is accurate. It is up to date. There's not a prayer you're going to be able to have this when you have manual forms without a lot of effort, because by the time you've created the report, it's already out of date. So you have to have digitized forms in order for it to be up to date. Now, what I want to do is hop into FlowForma just for a few minutes to give you an idea of what the forms might look like, etc., and how easy it is to change around. So I'm just going to dive in, and hopefully you get a good understanding of how easy it is to use. So just here on a landing page, now this is just a demonstration area, but it's for a college. Now, just to tell you that this actual is basically a replication of an actual live environment that we have with a college. It's a customer of ours in the UK outside of London, Abington and Whitney. And just to let you know that these processes that they digitized saved them over 5,000 hours in a year. The CFO there went about the whole measurement process again and made sure he went through every process that he wants to digitize and got the timings about how much time he was saving or how much time the college was saving. And over 5,000 hours, which equated to 2.5 administrative people. So basically, as far as he was concerned, for his workforce, he was getting the workload done of an extra 2.5 people, which is always nice. So this is a simple landing page. And as you can imagine, the sort of friendlier it is, and again, here we have a scenario where the data is all being collected and you can produce reports and different interrogations. You've got a to-do list and all that sort of thing. So it just makes everything a lot easier to coordinate. Here, if I look at, say, this student update form, now I basically want to show you the kind of dynamic nature of a form that can be easily built in. Here, you have a standard look and feel that's been automatically generated by FlowForma. And just to give you an idea, this is the student update form, but for example, this is the trips and visits, this is their risk assessment, this is their expenses. They all have a very similar look and feel, and that is on purpose. So from a learning concept, the whole thing is the very first one. So once people get to understand how the first one works, the next ones are so much easier. An example here then of just some information I'm going to enter in to give you an idea. And again, it's just the dynamic nature of the form. It looks very simple at the start, but I haven't made my selections yet. Here you've got a compulsory field. If I click personal details, for example, it's going to ask me for address, contact number, etc. If it's about course details, I get to change my course information. It could be both. It could be an addition without an update. So I have to also choose here. The whole screen changes dynamically based upon my selections. It can be as simple and as complex as you need. But as you can imagine, this ease of entry and the nature of just presenting what people need to see at the one time makes the learning curve so much shorter. All of these steps here, by the way, as you can see across the top, they're the steps in the process as it stands at the moment. It's another unique facility within FlowForma where you actually get to see what steps are involved in the process at any given stage. Obviously, at the moment, I'm at application stage, but as I move through the process, you will see where you are in it, and you'll also see what's next to be done. So it educates all of your workforce as well on how your process is meant to operate, why they are waiting for something to happen, or where is it at the moment. You get to see that through every process. You have that illustration of where you are in the process. Now I'm just going to pop in to the background, and this is sort of the most crucial area of giving a tool like this to your process owners. If I just pop into, say, that student update form, and I was referring to this earlier on where we have everything brought together. So you have your forms, workflow, document generation. Here you'll notice the steps in the process. Some of them are hidden and they would be shown based upon criteria. But as you create your process, so the steps here, and then you have your data within each step, and then on the right-hand side you have the ability to add rules to those steps. You also, as you create the process, you get a visual interpretation of the process also. So you can see visually what's going on in this process. This is fantastic when you're trying to get users to agree with your process, get them to understand it. You can show them, here is the process as it stands. Okay, here are our steps. Here are our checkpoints. Here are our passbacks, our decision points. And once it's agreed, any changes here are automatically replicated in here. So it's a nice way to prototype your process, but also have it as usable. Here, for example, if I wanted to add a step, and I can actually add existing steps, so I can reuse components. But if I wanted to add a step, and I just put it in like this, click Save, it pops it in, and I drop it into up. I'm going to move it up to the top. Now, you want to populate with the information. I'm just going to put in a small bit of information into that step. Put in my username. And I'm going to make that a personal group. And I'm going to pick the current user. Save that. So at the moment, username, great. I'm going to ask a simple question. I'm going to make that a yes, no. Now, we have so many different question types here. We call fields questions. I'm going to make that a compulsory field. I could add tooltips to this. I'm just going to save that. And then I'm going to ask another question. And that is, why not? And I'm going to make that a choice field. Now, I could link to a database. I could pull in information from there. I'm just going to say not available. Or not up to date. And then maybe other. Simple drop down. I could go for radio buttons, etc., but I'll just go for that. And one more, final one, and I'm going to get a sign off for this. So please, I'll do please sign, or sign please. It's always nice to be polite. And I'm going to make this wet signature. So basically that means that if you have a touch screen, which a lot of our mobile people do, you're going to have the ability to actually physically sign off. And that sign off can be involved in a document. It can go onto a document as part of the process as well. I can automatically create documentation throughout this. So I'm just going to save that. Now these two questions are hidden. So I'm going to add a couple of rules. And here on the right-hand side, you have the option when you're throughout the process of adding rules. And depending on where you are, at process level, at step level, at question level, you get a different choice here. I'm going to do this hide show question one of the more straightforward rules. They're all designed the same way. You've got a description of it, you've got conditions, and then you've got actions. So my description of this is why not? And my condition is, I'm thinking if in the back of my head, so I'm thinking if all the documents read equals yes. Not happen. Well, if all documentations are read equals yes, I'm going to show that sign, please. I want to see it. Now I could do more, and that's where you get your dynamic screens happening very easily. I'm going to do one more. I could have contained that in the last rule, but I just want to emphasize the creation of rules, how straightforward they are. I mixed up that title anyway. I know where I am. So I'm just going to do the reverse here. So I'm going to say if all documents, that equals now. My descriptions are poor. I'm going to say the why not, I'm going to show that. Okay, save that. I'd kill somebody if they did that in documentation. So there we go. So I have two rules gone in for the sign and for the why not. I'm going to save that. And all I want to show you guys is that because the forms are automatically rendered, the next time somebody comes in to do a student update and they click on it, the form is going to change. So here we've already got that step in. It's pulled in all of the same look and feel as the other steps, etc. It's brought in the username. All documents read. If I try to submit, it's going to say, no, you can't do that because there's a validation error on it. If I said no, it's going to ask me why not. If I say yes, it's going to look for a signature before I proceed. And that's a change in the process within moments. So you build processes the same way. You go through your steps, you create your steps. What data do you want in those steps? Where do you want that data to come from? Do you want that data to post into databases? And what rules do you want attached? They are the simple stepping stones of getting your processes digitized. Now, I hope that was in some way illuminating. So, just to give you an idea. FlowForma is in use all around the world. It's in 20 countries, 200,000 users. A big thing for us is the fact that the likes of Forrester Research have highlighted FlowForma as one of the platforms to consider when you are looking to digitize anything. We have a lot of really great companies who have given us a thumbs up, and this is just a snapshot of them. We've got a few hundred, and again, they're across the globe. So the reality is we've got use cases, we've got everything like that. You are not the first people to enter into this arena, and you won't be the last. But the reality is, if you don't have things digitized, you really should. There's no downside. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Shay. We've just got time for some questions and answers, so if you would like to give us a question, type it into the question box, hit submit, and it will show up on our screen here. So I've got a couple of questions from the get-go, which is kind of, were there any other classic lean techniques that DuPont found to be useful?
Yes, Ian, to respond to that one, I think if you reflect back on in fact, let me push back to that Lean Six Sigma screen here, and there we are. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that one. If you look on that, see all the Lean tools under the DMAIC system there, and on the left side you see VSM, value stream mapping. That proved to be the essential starting point for most of this, that you really had to understand and map out your process and really put the lean rigor to whatever process you were trying to understand and improve. If you didn't understand that, you really couldn't improve it. So that was a core essential. Thanks for that question.
Okay, we have another question here, which is, sorry, let me just find the way through. Here we are. Most companies don't have the resources to build a massive organization to enable their team journeys. So how can they enjoy success in this area?
Well, I think if you have dedicated leadership, you don't have to improve an entire company like DuPont did. But if you want to improve just your area, you have to have your leadership on board. So the all-in mindset, it all begins with that. And once that's there, then it's all about how do I get to that place in the future that I want to, and that's where you can introduce the lean journey and the lean concepts.
Okay, so what technology do people need to use if they're going to be running FlowForma?
Well, you just need to have Office 365. Yeah, it's just Office 365. Yeah.
Okay, and it runs fine. And can people access?
Yeah, it's an app that sits on it. Yeah.
Sorry, can people access forms on mobile devices as well?
Correct. So when you create a process in FlowForma, the forms are automatically rendered for a mobile app, and that mobile app it's downloadable. So even though it is browser independent as well, so it can work on any browser, but it does have an app also.
Sure. I think there's actually something about that in the resource box. If you go to the bottom, there's some case studies and PDFs down in there, and I'm pretty sure that the mobile capability of it is mentioned in one of those. Okay. I'm just remembering some of the mobile capabilities are really quite impressive, so that you can get. So it's not just desk bound, is it? People can take this all over the place.
Correct, and they can actually use it in offline mode.
Okay. Quick question here, which is from Dan Elder, who wants to know if you support left-to-right languages. Or is it always...
very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting one. We actually did a proof of concept on that before, so it's not out of the box, but we have proven that we can do it. So it would be something that we would have to look at. But yeah, it has come up before, and we have done it, but we didn't make it part of the product just yet. It's an add-on.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're coming up to time, so what I'd like to do is push a couple of more questions to the audience. This is for you at home. Did you find this webinar useful? Very straightforward, yes or no on that. If you can hit the submit button once you've decided. Did you find this webinar useful? Yes or no. Hit the submit. Give you 3, 2, 1. My next question is, would you be interested in a free trial of the FlowForma process automation tool? Would you like a personalized one-to-one demo of the FlowForma process automation? Or would you like a free one-to-one consultation? Again, choose your option there and hit the submit button. I'll give you 5 seconds on that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and hit the submit button. And finally, does your organization use Microsoft Office 365? Pretty straightforward. It's either yes or a no. Choose your option there. 3, 2, 1. Hit the submit button. A couple of other things that are coming through the Q&A box. Mohammed El-Ghafi would like to say if there are some case histories. You can certainly find those down in the resource box at the bottom of the page. And let me I'm just having a quick look through, trying to think and speak at the same time, which is not usually helpful. Shamunga Sundar, a couple of people have mentioned about this. Don't we have to standardize the process through Lean Six Sigma before we go for digital? And I guess you'd say that's... What would you say, Shay?
So you don't have to have it completely normalized and by Six Sigma levels to digitize it first. You do have to have it. So the ideal thing, if you were to start from scratch, you would always be told, optimize your process, make sure that your process is efficient, etc., before you digitize it. Because it actually will, and we have use case of this, it will save you half the time in digitizing it if you do it, if you already have pre-documented and you're happy with it. You then actually have the opportunity, when it's digitized, to get some more, as Cliff was saying, from the measurements point of view, get some more information on the measurements of your process, etc., so you can properly optimize it. So you do have to have your process documented and rationalized, and you can do it then, digitize it, and bring in your Six Sigma levels again to apply it to the process in digitized format also.
And I will say, just to add, I will say that you can go ahead. It's just the act of mapping and digitizing a process itself is a leaning event. You'll see so many inefficiencies, and standardization to get it mapped and digitized will lean it out. But from there, since obviously we're in a never-ending journey here, you're always going to be seeking for optimization of that. And so there, as you get into successive stages, as you see here in this slide, you will be continuously looking to lean out your process as well.
Okay, I think we're going up to time, guys. So thanks very much indeed for a really interesting session. It's the kind of session that I think people will need to go back and listen to again and review again, because there's so much in there, and you can do that. You just follow back the link that you followed to get here in the first place, and this session will be available on demand within about an hour. So it's a quick turnaround. Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time together. So I'd just like to offer you the opportunity to get in touch with an email to info@flowforma.com if you have any further queries or inquiries at all. You can also download the product brochure from the resources section in your control panel to learn more information about the FlowForma product. I put in a link as well, so you can sign up for a free 14-day trial of FlowForma. You can book a one-to-one demo with one of their experts or request a consultation. You can also find them on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook for more updates. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. Just like to say thank you again to Clifford and Shay. If we haven't got around to your question, we are sending them over, so we'll include your contact details and they will be able to give you a response offline. A reminder too that you can sign up to Process Mining Live 2020. So from me, Ian Hawkins, Clifford Lee and Shay O'Connor, wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of what's left of the week. Thanks and goodbye.